Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and that was a lot for episode 1. Oh boy.
It was a lot. Yesterday, you all heard episode 1, and so
either yesterday or 2 days ago.
We took a whole entire day and a half off to not record this. It wasn't immediately after, so we definitely went back.
We definitely are not marathon recording episodes 1 and 2.
You know, if they would just release them in a regular order, then we wouldn't have to do this. But here we are.
Yeah, or it would have been super. What would have been super nice is if we had gotten the screeners.
You know what?
That would have been super nice.
You know what? Moving forward,
I need to talk to some people because if they're going to hand out screeners for things, right? They're going to hand out screeners for things. It would be super nice to have those episodes recorded.
Yeah, can you imagine if we had just already recorded all of our 3 episodes?
We could have had it done.
We could have had it
ready to go.
And I would have just released it as I wanted to. Like, it's been like,
I could have made all the TikToks. I could have done maybe I need to talk to some people because we did not get screener for the first 3 episodes of Andor. And it would have been super helpful if we'd have gotten those screeners.
Look, here's the thing.
That would have been real nice.
I won't hold it against them if they give us the screeners for Ahsoka.
What's next? Is Ahsoka next?
It's got to be Mando 3 is next.
Mando 3.
But I'm saying if you give us the screeners for Ahsoka, all will be forgiven.
Okay, yes.
Because
that's
those
screeners.
Yes, Mando 3 is exciting and I'm excited for it, but that's not something that I'm like.
Well, Andor was the first show they handed out screeners at all. They didn't send out screeners to the press.
Right.
For that at all.
And I don't know if they'll do it for Mando 3 because I feel like the show's already established. I think they only do it for new shows, or they'll have to do it for new shows because they might send them
out for Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, we'll see.
Anyway, the point is I'm exhausted. Let's do the Mon Mothma minute so we can get into this episode. Now, fortunately, we've introduced most of the characters already in episode 1. It's about an hour and a half long episode, and I swear about 30 minutes of it was just discussing actors. So for our Mon Mothma minute today, because she does not appear in episodes 1 through 3, I have highlighted the second of 3 Mon Mothma adjacent stories about her that you may not have read or revisited recently. The one I picked today was called Contingency Plan. It is her short story from a Certain Point of View 45th anniversary celebration of A New Hope. It tells where she was during the Battle of Yavin. I'm not going to talk about it for an extended period of time because I do not want to spoil it. It's toward the end of the book. The whole book is super worth reading. My favorite story is probably the Sith of Data work from the early part of it. But it does a good job of addressing a lot of plot things in the book and also getting ahead of some of the characters who weren't there. Dr. Aphra shows up. But the Mon Mothma one at the end of the book is called Contingency Plan. It is about her on the shuttle leaving, and it is excellent. I won't spoil it, but you should definitely read it. It works so well with Rogue One. And that was they're 57 seconds.
Nice. Your Mon Mothma minutes are pretty solid. They're pretty
They're solid. They're solid so far. We'll wait and see when she gets on the show.
I was gonna say, wait until she actually appears.
Wait until she's here,
and let's see what actually happens with your Mon Mothma. I mean, we might have to cut you off at some point because it might be like that.
I'm timing them very carefully. To make sure that I don't go over 1 minute for my Mon Mothma minutes.
This week we're talking about Andor episode 2. That would be me. Cassian attempts to lay low on Ferrix as agents of the law close in. Charles, what is one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you did not?
So one thing that I really liked about this episode, my thing I liked and my thing I didn't like are going to go hand in hand. And unfortunately, you cannot necessarily do anything about either. My thing that I liked was that this is a show that is not afraid to slow down and really dig into the characters. That it doesn't feel like somebody has to pull a blaster and get into a gunfight every single episode. That we can slow down and take some time with Cassian and Bix and Cyril to really build up where we're going in episode 3. However, my thing I disliked was that I feel like this episode didn't do a lot of introducing and it didn't do a lot of wrapping up plot point. It was a very middle chapter, which is fine. It is the middle chapter of the 3-arc thing.
Right.
But I also felt like it was a lot of maneuvering the people into place for all hell to break loose in the 3rd episode. I don't think any of it could have been skipped or cut. I do, however, think that given the length of the episodes, like maybe it could have been 2 episodes instead of 3. Like you could have very easily chopped this episode in half, stuck half of it on the end of the first one, and stuck the other half on the beginning of the third one. So I like that it's slowing down. I think this episode, with regards to the formula that they've set up, probably the lowest stakes episode of the 3. What about you? One thing you liked and one thing you didn't.
I didn't really have anything that stood out to me that I like about this episode. Like it was very, like you said, middle of the road, just average bridge episode. There wasn't anything where I was like, oh fuck, like this is amazing. You know what I mean? I'll say I like the character of Marva. I think she was really good in the role. I think that character is needed.
We'll get to who that actress is.
Right. I don't want to go too much into who she is, but I thought the person did really well. And then I thought she was a great character because she does something in this episode where she introduces a something about the character that we didn't know before and is important to his plot. It gets more in detail in the third episode, but it starts introducing this idea in this episode where you're like, huh, he's more than just randomly in this one movie.
She introduces even more depth to a character that already had depth, but it's piling on. And I do think that's something with a lot of characters in this is every one of them that interacts with Cassian brings something new out of the character.
Right.
That there's not a lot of instances or any instances at all really where characters that interact with Cassian aren't bringing out something that we haven't seen before.
Right. And the thing I did not like was how short this episode felt.
Yes, tell us how short this episode was, Bradley.
So rough math, without title sequence and credits, it was approximately 30 minutes exactly, which is like a comedy. Like it's not a drama. Like there is no way that you could do a solid drama 30 minutes. Like there's something about the structure of a drama that you just can't do that. Like, I don't know.
There's a reason TV dramas are typically 45.
Right. And this episode was missing 15 minutes of content. It felt like it truly was. I mean, I can't tell you exactly what the content was that it was missing, but I knew, like, I felt it was missing. Like, it was just so short. I was like, whoa, that's over? Like, already? Like when the credits rolled, I was like, whoa, what is happening? I was that's the end.
On to the next one.
Yeah, they were like, oh, you want to watch the end of the actual episode, which is the third part? Then here you go. Like, that's really what it kind of did. Anyway, that's what I didn't like.
All righty. Well, take us into the episode.
All right. Well, we begin in the past as a young Cassian and the Canary tribe make their way to the fallen ship. In the present, as the town wakes up, Tim reads a bulletin about the authority seeking a Canary male. Cassian visits Marva and she reminds him to maintain his cover story. Later, Cassian visits Bix and tells her about the incident.
So I mentioned in the first episode how all of these are real sets and real locations that they're shooting on. And one thing I really want to highlight is the forest scene where the Canary kids are moving through the forest. And you see them interacting with the trees and jumping over logs and stepping on things. And it has such a unique feel to it that's different than the stuff we've seen before with the volume, that it feels like they're in a large forest and moving through it.
Right.
And that you get a sense of how the trees feel. You get a sense of how it smells. You get a sense of being in the wood, which I think you just don't get from these computer generated sets if the characters aren't there to interact with it. Also, so I just started replaying because I never finished it and the sequel just got announced. But I started replaying Breath of the Wild, and the bit where they're walking through the forest and they walk by the overgrown machinery for some reason gives me big Breath of the Wild vibes.
Interesting. Oh, you mean the shot of him and you can see the entire
no, but we'll get to that. There's a bit where they start walking by machinery and the forest is like overtaking it.
Oh, okay. That's funny you said that. So like literally the opening sequence of Breath of the Wild is where he runs out onto the hill and he overlooks all of Hyrule, and like and it's like devastated. Similar shot. Yeah, it's like the similar shot.
Very similar to.
I was like,
I love the shot where he runs up to the quarry. You look out and you get a shot of the quarry. And yeah, it was in the trailer, so the impact is lessened somewhat.
Yeah. But I like it because there was no context before, and now there's some context, and I feel like it's still pretty impressive. I will say though, as this story is progressing, this past flashback stories progressing, I was getting a sense of like, this is kind of how the Phasma show would feel.
Oh my God, you're so right.
Like, this is kind of. I mean, in the sense of a tribe-esque like group, and then some kind of derelict planet that is either uninhabitable or poisonous or something. Like, I was like, oh, this is Phasma, just without the desert. Like, this is what it is. Like, I was like, okay, this is what I'm getting. And I'm like, maybe they're giving us a preview.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that, but I dig it. I dig it a lot.
This is where I started feeling that, and I just wanted to bring that up.
You will just take any opportunity to bring up Captain Phasma.
Oh yeah, especially if I think that there's even a chance that they'll even do that story. So
I mean, Gwendolyn Christie is down to play more Phasma, so
she's there. Just use her, please.
Do you want to talk about who our time grappler is?
Okay.
Because I didn't want to shout this dude out.
I have a really hilarious little mini section about this. So the finding out that his name was the Time Grappler and the IMDb, like, I'm sorry, the IMDb needs to fix the way that they do the cast of TV shows, and they need to put like not just that they were in one episode, they need to say which episode they were in it, like immediately. Like, I get it, like the show just came out, so it's not like perfectly segmented yet, but I need to know like everything like immediately when I'm doing my notes. And so that's why this is so annoying to figure out.
Wikipedia, get on it. We were talking the other night about Bradley and I are already stressed out trying to get our notes done because we were recording this on Friday. Everything dropped on Wednesday. We were recording this on Friday, and I was like, I can't even imagine how stressful it must be to be an editor at Wikipedia right now.
Right.
Desperately trying to get everything updated and edited because every podcast in the world is going to be trying to use Wikipedia for their resource.
And actually, another mini part is when I was finishing up my notes for this episode, I was on Wikipedia, obviously, and the Wikipedia article for this episode just kind of ends, and I was like, did they finish writing the Wikipedia? I was like, is this over? And then when I went back and I was watching the episode, I was like, oh no, it just ends. It just like ends right here.
That just ends.
I know. I just thought that was really funny because I thought they hadn't finished, and I was like, Wikipedia didn't finish the damn like entry. It's like, it was just really funny. Anyway,
but we never got an answer. Who's playing the Time Grappler?
So that was funny too, because I didn't know what Time Grappler was until I figured it out. But Time Grappler, or the guy banging the bell in the town, is played by Neil Bell.
Which I thought was very funny.
Ha ha ha. The only notable thing that I wrote down that he was in was Dune. So that was very important because obviously
Sardaukar Bashar in Dune. He looks like a bad guy. Yep. He's an Enola Holmes.
I just thought that was very important because obviously Star Wars is basically based off of Dune. So
what's interesting about this guy is he has only been acting for 21 years and he has 65 credits.
He's British though, right? It looks like he's
British.
Yeah. So there you go. The Brits just love just getting in there and just making some content.
Well, yeah, the thing is, if you're a TV actor in Britain, you'll inevitably show up in everything.
Everything, yeah.
Yep. So here's another fun fact about that anvil. Somebody informed me, and I have this secondhand. I did not check this myself. Someone informed me that the narration for this episode, if you're listening to it with the accessibility
audio
narration on, describes this as a Beskar anvil.
Weird.
Yes.
Okay. So the only reason why I was even watching this with subtitles is because for character names.
I mean, I always watch the subtitles, but this is apparently the accessibility narrations describe it as a Beskar anvil.
Interesting. That makes it better to me, but that's a huge chunk of Beskar.
That's what I said. I was like, that sure is a huge chunk of Beskar we've got going on there.
Huh. Maybe Beskar's not super rare yet at this point, or they just don't know what it is. Maybe.
Yeah, but I thought that was really interesting that they had this big chunk of Beskar just sitting there.
Right, very expensive piece of metal just chilling at the top of a bell tower. But okay.
Well, yeah, maybe because all the Mandalorian armor is made from it, so maybe it's easier to get. But then it's like sacred to them. So the question is like, how did they get this giant piece of Beskar? There's a story here.
There's definitely
I don't know what
side
it is.
Comic. I don't know what it is, but it's there.
Explain to me how the anvil got there. I do want to shout out, we're going to shout out some crew members this episode.
Okay.
And I want to shout out Nicholas Britell's score for this show.
Okay.
This is such a weird score. but it's so good. I feel like this score does what the techno music Dark Trooper thing in Mando wanted to do. It's something that's weird and different, but still very Star Wars.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you'll notice it the most when you finish the episode. I don't know if you want to fast forward to the end of the episode, just watch the last scene of this episode and Cassian's like walking through like a field of workers or something. And the music is so hard, like it's going like so hard. It's like almost like rock and roll. It's like like, and you're like when the credits roll,
He's
you're
doing like
a
drum percussion thing, and I'm like, good Lord. This is going way harder than it needs to, but also like just the right level of hard.
For sure.
So Cassian visits Marva Andor. Do you want to talk about who's playing Marva Andor?
Yeah, absolutely. So Marva is played by Fiona Shaw. You may know her from little films such as Harry Potter. She plays Aunt Petunia in Harry Potter. That's what I know her from. She's also in
J.K. Rowling.
She was in True Blood. She was in the show Killing Eve. She's been around the block, and so you've
seen this woman.
You've seen this woman. Yeah, you've definitely seen her.
Seen this woman before. Even if you can't identify where you've seen this woman before, you have seen this woman before. 100%. And she's great, playing an absolutely fantastic Marva. I love how just like messy of a person Cassian is. Because he shows up and he's like, oh yeah, I was out with doing stuff and couldn't get home. And Marva's like, you are so full of shit.
Right. He's trying to do like his cover
someone
story.
knows about Kenari. Is it one of your fucking women that you're running around with?
Yeah, she's like, you're telling one of your lovers again, like where you're really from. Which begs the question, how many women does Cassian sleep with?
Right. At least 4. She lists off at least 4. There's 3 that she lists off, and we know Bix, because B2 says Bix later on. I want to talk about the Fest thing.
Okay.
So Marva mentions, and then later in the episode, it is mentioned that, or earlier in the episode, no, later in this episode, sorry, it will be mentioned that all of Cassian's paperwork says he comes from Fest. In reference books for Rogue One, his homeworld is genuinely listed as Fest. However, Andor reveals that that is a lie.
Right. It's a cover story.
So rather than saying, no, he's actually from Kenari, and we're just overwriting the previous reference books, they took the extra step to work it in as a plot point.
Right.
That Fest was a lie. So not only did they acknowledge the previous iterations of it, but then they turned around and said, we're going to make this part of the plot.
Mm-hmm. I love that for him.
I think that's such an interesting thing, because I talked about being concerned about, interaction with previous stories that had come before. And this has put that to bed a little bit for me. Still a little concerned about the Gorman massacre.
Yeah.
But this has put that to bed a little bit.
Well, I was going to say, this is any indication. You can be like, okay, they clearly, because they know that this is only 24 episodes of content and we're getting the first 12 this year, they know they have a set goal, a set story they're allowed to tell in a set amount of time. I don't know if they're going to go as crazy as like Mandalorian, where like he can just kind of start making up stuff as he goes along and then kind of course correct throughout the season / as the show gets more popular or as the show continues. Whereas this show, they know they can't course correct because they only have 2 seasons to work. So this is just
right.
It's got to be planned out.
Well, they also have a few things from like reference books and things that have been previously mentioned before. And for the most part, this is lining up exactly with everything we know that was revealed in Rogue One and adaptations of Rogue One and various things of that nature. My only note for the big sequence where she sees the thing and then Tim kind of goes over her shoulder afterwards is just that Tim sucks.
He does suck. But I did want to mention this scene this is the first time we see what I call text bubbles on screen in Star Wars, because in shows more recently, in more current shows, they like to do this thing where characters are texting each other on the phone. And instead of showing the phone in their hand and showing what they're texting, they like to do this After Effects thing where they add the text bubbles near their face or their thought. It's like right in their field of vision.
This could be my 2012-ish to 2014-ish Tumblr brain talking. But I do believe BBC Sherlock was one of the first major shows to do that, where they would have the text bubbles pop up.
Right.
And I did think it's an interesting choice that they did it, because it shows up in Aurebesh on the screen.
Right.
But then,
and then
it has to show up in English.
Right.
Basic. But it has to show up in the language in which we are watching this in order for us to understand that Tim is reading that they're looking for a Canary male.
You know what they should have done in this scene? It should have been in Aurebesh first, and then it should have like translated as he was reading it.
There's so much Aurebesh in the show. Like, we haven't even gotten translations in yet at time of recording. I'm sure somebody will go through and do all the Aurebesh translations.
Ugh, dumb nerds. Can you imagine some nerdy ass person?
I can't imagine being a dumb nerd who obsesses over everything. I definitely don't have a podcast in which I do that.
Oh God, what a life.
It's horrible. Horrible life. I pity people that have podcasts where they go into minute detail on Star Wars. Look, at least we didn't do a Game of Thrones podcast.
Oh God. Then one of us would have to have read the books, and like that's a whole thing.
I have read 4 of the books.
But see, then we couldn't do it because then you're not an expert. You didn't read all the books.
You're gonna have to read the 5th one and the World of Ice and Fire and Fire and Blood. I have to spoil House of the Dragon for myself.
Exactly, and nobody wants that.
Although I do know the ending of I know some of the ending of House of the Dragon because I've watched Game of Thrones.
I was gonna say, I think most people. Well, technically, you know the ending because it takes place before the show. So, like, it's gonna be like we already know how it technically.
I know the fates of one of the major the fate of one of the major characters because I remember it from Game of Thrones.
Got it.
Anyway, this is not a Game of Thrones podcast. Thank God.
Moving on. After a bit of light drinking, Tim calls the authority and leaves them a tip about Cassian. Later, Bix stops by and spends the night with Tim. Later in the night, Inspector Karn meets with Sergeant Mosk, and they put a plan in motion to avenge the deaths of their colleagues.
I think this is where my 10 sucks note actually went.
Okay. Well, either way.
Because he sees like Bix and Cassian together, and Cassian like reaches out and puts his hand, and then Tim like fucks off to go screw Cassian over because he's jealous of him or whatever.
Jealous, right.
Which is such a shitty thing to do. Like, it's absolutely just like a shitty thing to do. But it's also a very human thing to do. Like, that's a realistic thing that people who are jealous are going to go for.
Because he knows that he's never going to have that same connection that they clearly had at one point, and that it's not gone away yet. Like, I mean, clearly she has, in a sense, moved on, but it looks to be that she still cares about him, or in some capacity.
And Tim is so insecure.
Right.
That, like, he does not trust her. That is the thing. He does not trust her at all. Because, you know, she's so cagey around him. He's always talking about, I need to run errands, doesn't talk about what she's doing. He should still trust her because it's important to trust your romantic partners. But I also find it really interesting that this was the motive for them reporting. And then Tim does report him, and we get this sequence, which I really don't really have any notes on, where they pull up Cassian's like picture and
that's
Cyril
why I didn't really
stares
mention
at
it
it
too much.
Except to do the Cyril as Javert. This is our most obvious Cyril as Javert moment so far. You do know who Inspector Javert is, Bradley.
I do not know what that is.
Again, you're not a musical theater gay, so you don't know Les Miserables.
Oh, I've never seen the movie.
You don't have to see the movie. How do you not know who Inspector Javert is?
Is that Hugh Jackman, or is that the other one?
No, for my literature or musical theater people out there, this is the most Inspector Javert Cyril has gotten so far. So I want to say out loud what is happening in this sequence between Bix and Tim. This is a scene in a Star Wars show in which 2 inebriated people have sex.
Again,
mildly inebriated people have sex.
And they're going back to this is clearly a more adult show. And the fact that she hits him up for a 3 a.m. booty call.
She literally booty calls his ass. And I'm like,
and she doesn't she doesn't just call him. She just goes up to his door.
She shows up.
Because she knows he'll say yes. No matter what, because that's how much he cares about her.
Remember, she said in the first episode he'd do anything for me.
He would do anything for me. That's right. And she knows she has him wrapped around her finger. And that's why she's like, I choose to go do this booty call right now, because that's how
it's on her terms.
Exactly.
It's on her terms. She's like, you know what? I'm stressed out. I've had 1 or 2 drinks. I want to bang.
Exactly. Cassian is stressing me the fuck out right now. I need to go bang somebody.
Shout out to Elzar Mann for canonically inventing sex. That's a reference you won't get, Bradley, yet, but we'll get there. But for my High Republic people, as Hope would say on J Guys and Jedi, this joke is for Charles alone and no one else. So in the scene where Cyril, I almost just called him Inspector Javert, in the scene where Cyril, they're getting ready to go after him, getting ready to go after Cassian, we get a new character who walks up and starts talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
Sergeant Linus Mosk. Do we want to talk about who's playing Sergeant Linus Mosk?
Yes. Why do I have a different name than that?
Sergeant Linus Mosk.
I have Mosk, but I don't. Oh, maybe it edited it or something. I have Kostek.
Because on IMDb it lists him as a Sergeant Kostek.
Yeah, that's what I have. Is it not that?
He's listed as Linus Mosk in the first 3 episodes, and then Sergeant Kostek for some reason in the back 9.
Okay. Well, we will double check that once Wikipedia decides what it wants to call him.
Wikipedia does identify him as Sergeant Linus Mosk.
Linus Mosk. Okay, I'm just going to call him Mosk because it's easier, because clearly that's the only name they can decide on. So we're going to call him Sergeant Mosk.
Yeah, Mosk is who Wikipedia and the episode identify him as playing.
Okay, so we'll call him Mosk for future reference.
I don't know where they got Kostek on for IMDb. Friendly reminder that IMDb is
they're not Wikipedia. Updated. Yeah, they are not Wikipedia.
It is user updated, but they are not Wikipedia.
Mosk is played by Alex Ferns. Notably, he most recently was in The Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So
most notable to me is he was in an episode of Chernobyl.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say Doctor Who for a second. It's like
I don't know if he was in Doctor Who. It doesn't look like he was in Doctor Who.
Probably not.
But this is your regular reminder to please go and watch Chernobyl. It is on HBO Max, and it is very, very, very fucking good. So that's who's playing Mosk. Yeah. I love Mosk, Linus Mosk. He's so shitty, but he's egging Cyril on. He's like this echo chamber for Cyril, to where it's like finally somebody who's listening to me, but he's so much more better at this than Cyril is.
Because what I'm gathering from this is that it's because Cyril is not really this person. He thinks he's this person. I think that's where this character is going to change. I think he thinks he's this very, like, I follow the rules, I'm an important kind of character. And he's going to come to realize that that's not who he actually is. He's actually a scared person. He's very frightened. He does not know what he's doing, versus Mosk clearly feels like he knows exactly what he knows the law. He knows what's going on. He knows he's important. He knows that what he's saying is correct. We follow the laws. We don't sweep anything under the rug because I'm the perfect soldier. Like, that's who his character is. He is giving January 6th vibes, and but he's clearly coming from the wrong place, right? Like, that's what's so great about his character, is that he is you said, the echo chamber.
You know who these two would be best buddies with? Breck from episode 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yes, they would be like, thank you, citizen, for doing your part.
Nothing wrong with a little order.
Right, exactly.
Fuck you, Breck.
No, it's definitely, yeah. So that's why I like this character. I think he's perfect because he's the actual extreme, right? He is the true extremism of what that character is versus what Cyril is, because he's trying to be that character. I think he's not achieved that level.
He's trying so hard, and this guy Mosk is much more experienced and much more comfortable, clearly, in his role. I just love the egging him on, but they're all fantastic. They're doing a great job.
I was going to say, I didn't write any of their names down, but you're right. They're doing a good job.
Except for the ones playing Tassa and his sister,
right,
which we talked about in episode 1. But shout out to them. They're doing a fantastic job. Let's talk about who's playing Luthen Rail.
Oh, you want to talk about him now?
I want to talk about him now, because this is the point where he shows up.
Okay. I will skip to my notes on him.
Tell us about who's flying down to the surface and who we get our first look at.
Cool. So Luthen Rail is played by Stellan Skarsgård. Stellan Skarsgård has our first Disney trifecta of the season.
Woo!
So he is, and that makes sense because he's a very
as
important
well deserved.
character.
He has 152 acting credits.
Now, he has been in so much, it's very hard actually to pick the things that were his Disney trifecta. So I just kind of threw them in there. But obviously, Andor's is Star Wars. He was in, most notably, Pirates of the Caribbean as Davy Jones, as like his big kind of Disney
no, he was. I'm
sorry. Not Davy Jones. You're right. He was Will's dad.
Turner. He's on Davy Jones's ship.
Correct. Sorry, I got confused. He's also in the Cinderella live action movie. He's done a couple of things. His Marvel thing is actually he's in all the Thor movies. He plays Dr. whatever in the
Eric Selvig.
Go
listen to our friends. He's in 3 of the 4 Thor movies. He is not in Thor Ragnarok. But he is in Thor, Avengers, Thor: The Dark World, Avengers: Age of Ultron, and then again briefly in Thor: Love and Thunder as Dr. Eric Selvig. Go listen to our friends over at Marvelous Divas. They have covered Thor, Avengers, and Thor: The Dark World already.
Nice.
And they just shouting out our friends over there. Go check them out.
There you go. So he's been in quite a few things, but he does have our first Disney trifecta, which is awesome. And he has a true Disney trifecta because all the things he's been in are live action. I mean, we don't say that that's like a rule, but technically that's like
he has a Disney trifecta without technicalities.
Right, exactly. Like we play fast and loose with the Disney trifecta rules, like because you can have a hybrid Disney trifecta where you have some cartoon and then some live action. But I think what we would call the technical true Disney trifecta is where you physically appear in all 3
or you voice something in a mainline Disney film.
Exactly.
Like there's a difference between something that was produced by Disney, which will get you a technical Disney trifecta, or a Disney movie. Stellan Skarsgård was in Pirates of the Caribbean. I want to shout out some other things that he's been in real fast.
Sure.
He's a lead actor on our show, so I'm going to take the extra time to do that. He's in Dune as Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. He is in 5 episodes of Chernobyl, the series I mentioned earlier, where our Linus Mosk is from. He's one of the main characters. He plays Boris Sherbina. He's in the Mamma Mia movies.
Love that.
Scrolling down to see if those are the big ones that I wanted to mention.
Cool.
But he's in, you scroll down this man's IMDb page and he has had just a legendary career. So it is absolutely fucking awesome to get him in Star Wars. And he's playing a fairly major role in the series, which is amazing.
I love that journey for him. And I love that we're finally getting a Skarsgård in Star Wars.
Yes, this should have happened a long time ago, and I'm also glad it's this Skarsgård.
Right?
If anybody has Star Wars vibes, it's this Skarsgård
here. There's a lot of Skarsgård siblings and parents and all that.
There's a lot of Skarsgård men. I want to sleep with most of them.
I don't get me wrong. I love Stellan and I think he's great in this. I think the other ones would work. Bill and Alexander would work so well in Star Wars that they need to hurry up and get on this track too, because obviously
get them in season 2. Let's go.
Let's go. Like they can play whatever they want to play. Honestly, they can play some really good characters, and we'll speculate on another show what they could play, but I just I don't have time for that right now because they could literally play a bunch of different characters. But get them on this show if they're not already planned.
It needs to happen. So the subtitles mention that this is a droid from Fondor, the planet of Fondor. That's just interesting to me because Fondor is a pretty major planet. I'm going to make sure I say the canon stuff right. It was a huge shipyard in Legends. It was brought back to be a huge shipyard in canon. It's appeared in quite a few different things. It's appeared in Star Wars Battlefront 2. I believe that was its first canonical reconfirmation, but it's mentioned in Tarkin. It's mentioned in the From a Certain Point of View for The Empire Strikes Back, Squadrons. It's mentioned in Allegiance in the sequel trilogy era. So it just is a neat planet. I like mentioning planets. So the mention that this droid in the ship is probably from Fondor is our first clue that this guy is more important than he seems, which based on the trailers, we're going to find out how important this guy actually is. But he is able to afford a ship from one of the best shipyards in the galaxy. Okay. In Legends, this would probably be a Quap Drive Yard ship. which we don't have time to get into. My man is committed to his job. And I mean, like, I'm talking about the dude who like hits the anvil. I want to have a job that I'm as committed to as that man is committed to his job.
I like the way he prepares himself right before he does it. He takes one breath, like he goes, and then he does it. Like
he like psychs himself up to do it. It's like, that is so cool.
I mean, you would kind of have to if he's the first person basically waking up in the morning every single day. Like, I mean, I know other people are still technically awake because we see them walking around, but like he's the rooster of the town, you know. He like wakes
it's his job to wake people up, so he's got to be the earliest one up. I just shout out to him.
Shout out to that guy.
Just being committed to his job is the entire alarm clock for the town. So there's a sequence where Bix wakes up in like some guy's bed, mildly hungover, when the light's streaming in, and I have noted, same Bix, damn.
She's like, give me some coffee, damn it.
Her reaction is my reaction, which is I need coffee immediately. Who among us has not woken up randomly in someone they know's bed?
True. Also, someone who is clearly the person you slept with the night before is staring at you sleeping.
That is a bit weird. That is a bit weird.
It has like I'm afraid to lose you vibes. Like, so I have to spend every waking moment.
He knows at this point. So like he screwed up by reporting Cassian to the Pinkertons because he thought that there was something going on. No, I will not.
That. That's not the terminology for them. So you're going to confuse me.
I don't care. Get confused. Learn your history, Bradley.
So he reported Cassian to the security people.
The Corpo cop, the Corpo security, or whatever they're called. Then he realizes that no, she actually did like him. And oops, he did a bad thing. I think this may be our first mention in live action of Calf. I believe it was mentioned in Rebels, if I recall. Let me check this. I actually need to check this. If you remember our Mon Mothma Minute from last week, I recommended you watch the episode Secret Cargo, and Calf is apparently mentioned in the episode Secret Cargo, or it's present on screen.
Nice.
That is also mentioned or present, I can't tell from the Wikipedia, on the episode Out of Darkness. Mostly it looks like it mainly just shows up in books or comics. It shows up in Phasma.
Maybe that's where I remember it from.
That's where you've probably heard it before, but it's also
interesting.
Yeah, of the things I know you've read, it's also mentioned in Ahsoka, which I know you've read. It's mentioned in Thrawn, which I know you've read.
Okay, so it's mentioned in books. Got it.
It's mentioned in basically every book ever.
Cool.
But this may be our first live action Calf.
Interesting. Well, maybe that means that's a trend moving forward, that coffee always makes an Easter egg appearance in every Star Wars movie.
Yes, we need more coffee drinker representation in Star Wars. I would again die for B2.
Yes, he's
That's
so
my
cute.
note. I want to talk about Cassian's room.
Okay.
But before I do that, go ahead with whatever you were saying.
Oh, I was just mentioning the part where, you know, what I liked was he's like, hurry up and go home before she notices you're gone or she looks for you. And literally it immediately cuts to B2, where are you? Like, where the hell are you, dumb Roomba? Like, where are you? like, and the way she says it too is really funny because it's like he technically is a Roomba. He has to go plug in every single night. Otherwise, he's not going to work. And she's looking around for him like, did you die again? Like, where are you? You know, did you lose power? I can't find out where my droid is. And then so she goes into his room.
And he has like a little stuffed bantha.
Cute.
And this resonated with me because I also had a bantha toy when I was a little kid. And it looks almost exactly like this stuffed bantha.
No, but I like how he had a bantha because I like the difference in toy, I guess. We'll get, if you want to give it like a thing. So Jin, whose parents were heavily involved in the Empire,
lived on Coruscant when she was a girl,
have a stormtrooper doll or toy, right? So something that's still involved with the Empire. And then you have Cassian on this end, who is not heavily involved with the Empire. They're very like outer rim, like poor people kind of mentality. And he has a stuffed animal. It's like a bantha. I don't know. I just find that interesting that like there's
it's like a bantha.
It is a bantha.
It's like a bantha.
I don't know. It's just interesting.
Yeah, that just went completely over your head.
Yeah, I have no idea what you
have. You just forgotten Book of Boba Fett?
Yes.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
That's a line from Book of Boba Fett, a show that you've completely forgotten existed.
I definitely forgot it existed because I literally have a poster of it on my wall in my room and I still forgot it.
Wow. I got to put my Andor poster up that I got from Celebration.
I need to get one for Kenobi and Andor. Anyway.
I have one for Kenobi right literally behind me. We don't release these videos to the public, but Bradley can see in my webcam my Kenobi poster.
See, my problem is I can't decide which Kenobi poster I like, so I don't want to spend the money in getting it and then being like, I like this one or this one. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to get. We'll see. Anyway, moving on.
I promised we would talk about the timeline of the flashbacks. So.
Oh, this is that moment?
This is that moment.
Okay.
When has become now. And it's because of the patches. It is because of the patches on the people there. Marva identifies like that there's a Republic frigate coming to salvage the wreck. And I believe in episode 3, she identifies these as Republic people.
Okay.
But they're wearing separatist patches. Those are CIS emblems. This is super interesting because we don't know how old Cassian is supposed to be in there. We know that he claims he's been fighting since he's 6 years old, but he looks older than 6 in it. And we also, there's questions about the timeline because the Clone Wars take place between, we know Cassian is 26 in Rogue One, and the Clone Wars are 22 to 19 BBY. And Cassian is 26 in 0 BBY. So Cassian has between 4 and 7 when he's quote unquote fighting the separatists. The problem is he looks older in this, and there's also questions about the timeline. So there's some theories right now. Emily from the Divas Discord posted a thing on TikTok, her TikTok, at Your Weird Aunt Emily, where she talked about her theory that this is taking place several years after the end of the Clone Wars and that people just haven't gotten the memo yet. I think it's supposed to take place during the Clone Wars, and those are Republic troops, and they're transporting a bioweapon, which is why they all have gas masks in the scene.
Okay.
And that they're disguised as CIS people in case they get caught. It looks like the CIS is developing a bioweapon. And I think the bioweapon leaks out and renders Kenari uninhabitable. However, I think that what happened was prior to this slightly, that the Republic came in, stripped Kenari bare for the war effort. The people fought back, and something happened to all the adults, which is why there's only kids, and why that person in the first scene thinks they're going to be rescued or is trying to get their attention. So there's a lot of questions about timeline and where these flashbacks are taking place.
And we know because in the trailer we saw clone troopers at one point.
We saw clone troopers. So I think the flashbacks might go further back.
Yeah.
To explain. But then I also think that it's possible that the guy that Marva is with in episode 3 is Cassian's adopted father, and maybe he was fighting the separatists, but that also would be too late.
Right.
Like, it's very confusing. The timeline is very confusing right now based on what we know. I'm leaning toward every day I vacillate wildly or oscillate wildly between how I feel. Today, as of recording, I think that he's about 10 years old in these flashbacks, and they are taking place shortly after the Clone Wars.
Okay, I believe
that not everybody has gotten the memo.
Right.
I've come around to that way of thinking because I thought it was taking place during the Clone Wars because the CIS stuff, there would be no need to. But now I'm thinking it's sort of taking place maybe a little bit after. On the other end, we don't know. Right. We don't know is the thing. We don't know why they have CIS patches. We don't know why Cassian does not appear to be 6 years old. We don't know what happened to all these kids. But there is a lot of questions going on about the timeline.
And to sum all that up, I mean, he could have been exaggerating to Jin when he said that, you know.
6 is such a specific time to pick.
I was 6 years old.
Because according to the timeline, he's 6 years old in 20 BBY, which falls right in the middle of the Clone Wars.
Oh.
So this is taking place in, 2 years after the Clone Wars ended.
And to be fair, he probably doesn't even know how old he is because...
It's also possible I just realized this. It's also possible there's an Operation Paperclip thing going on here. I will now explain Operation Paperclip. Operation Paperclip was basically the recruitment of Nazi scientists by the United States after the conclusion of World War II. Because a lot of the scientists, they got over to do like science stuff for the American. And they would basically like grant them amnesty and sneak them over to the country, and they would do a lot of research. It's possible that these were former CIS scientists that are now working for the Empire / the Republic. That could be what's going on here, like in the same way that they recruited the cloners at the end of Bad Batch season 1. That could be also what's happening here, that the Empire's recruited former CIS scientists. I don't know. I don't know. That's the problem. Anyway, we'll find out. Let's move on to the next section.
Yeah. In the present, Cassian inquires about the cost of travel off-world. The Primor security team travels to Ferrix to ambush Cassian. Meanwhile, the mysterious man makes his way into town by bus.
So I want to briefly address one of the people in the scene. We're not going to do both of them because we're running over long as it is. But I want to address one of the people in the scene where Cassian is attempting to barter off, and it's a little alien.
Well, I was going to tell you, the other guy hasn't been in anything, so it doesn't matter. So it works.
Yeah, not a whole lot. Let's talk about Kieran Shaw.
Okay, we need to talk about him. He's very important.
Fucking badass.
We need to talk about him. He's so important.
This dude is so goddamn cool. Well, because I was like, I know that name from somewhere.
Yep, I instantly recognized him.
I instantly recognized that name, and I went, where do I know? I know him as Frodo Baggins' stunt double and body double from Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
Of course you do.
Of course I do, because I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings. This man has been in so much. It's insane. And he's either doing stunts or he's acting.
Yep.
He's been in every single Disney era film. Yep. For Star Wars. In The Force Awakens, he's Tito. Mm-hmm. In Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, he's uncredited as Ulin Musters.
Which I don't know how we didn't catch that the first time.
The woman in Jyn Erso's cell with her, the alien woman.
Right.
That's this guy. He's been in Star Wars The Last Jedi as Neeper's Panprit. He's in Solo, A Star Wars Story as Karj. And in Rise of Skywalker, he's Nambi Gima. He has also been in Doctor Who. He has been in the Hobbit films.
Yeah.
He's been in Chronicles of Narnia.
I think that's the first thing I remember him in, is that movie.
He's an Ewok in Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
He's into Dark Crystal. He's in Raiders of the Lost Ark. This man has just like had an incredible career as a stuntman and a creature performer and just an all-around like badass dude. I do have to dock points. He was in My Personal Enemy, Netflix's, BBC's, Stephen Moffat's, Mark Gatiss's Dracula.
Oh my god! Okay, get to that. I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, okay.
It is a mild joke that I do with the name. I hate that fucking show. If you've listened to Dark Side Divas, you know that I absolutely fucking despise the movie Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola. I hate the Dracula miniseries even more, but he was in that as well. So I will dock some points from him.
So I can't seem to find, when I was looking at him up, by the way, I couldn't seem to find anything Marvel related. So unfortunately, he doesn't have. He also has not been in a Disney thing.
But I'm gonna give him just a trophy for badass fantasy work.
Chronicles of Narnia is a Disney thing.
You are 100% correct. Chronicles of Narnia is in fact a Disney thing.
I was like, that counts as a Disney thing, if not.
Well, I'm giving him points just for being an all-around badass dude who's been in a lot of really cool fantasy stuff.
He's been in everything. He's essentially that guy of Star Wars now, because he's been in almost every film, at least in the more recent ones. He's been in the Disney era, for sure.
Badass dude. I love the Primor fortress that they roll up in, the like cop fortress. It's so fucking ugly.
It looks like a diamond or like a cube or something. Like, it doesn't look like it would be aerodynamic in any way whatsoever.
No, it looks ugly and corporate. It looks like something someone designed in a.
Oh, it's perfect.
It's fucking hideous.
Yeah, it's
and great. I love it. I love how fucking hideous it is. You know what else I fucking love how hideous it is? Cyril's speech.
So probably one of the funniest scenes in the show, only because it's so awkward and it gives this hilarious energy of like, I've never given a speech. I'm not really in charge. I'm like only in charge by like my title. I don't know what I'm doing. And it feels like the employees are there like watching him give this speech. Like, what is this guy saying? Like, what the fuck are we supposed to, can we just go? Like, can we go do our job? Because this guy is being fucking lame as hell. Like,
yeah. Oh my God. It's so really awkward. Funny. Here's the thing about Cyril Karn. I hate him so much. I like watching him fail at things.
Yeah.
Like there's several points next episode where I was absolutely delighted by him getting the shit kicked out of him.
But I also like secretly root for him, which is hilarious. Like I'm like secretly I want him to win. Like in this weird twisted way. I want him to win.
I want him to win and then not know what to do with it.
Right.
I want him to win only so I can watch him fail spectacularly at winning.
I was gonna say I kind of feel like what they would do is like something along the lines of like, oh, you took initiative. Here, join the Empire. And then he finally joins the Empire. And then it's kind of like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm like, this is the big leagues now. Like, and I really don't know what I'm doing.
Cyril is the type of person that the Empire loves manipulating because he really genuinely seems to believe in law and order. And this is translated into his weird, obsessive, privileged bullshit that he pulls. And the Empire loves those guys for the same reason they love guys like Brent, because you're not going to question them. You're just happy to see them imposing a little order.
Right.
But Star Wars is not political. The scene on the shuttle where they're like taxing around, you want to talk about who is playing Willie?
Yeah.
The guy that talks to Luthen.
So I'm doing this bit because I think it's really funny. So this guy has our first fake Disney trifecta.
Really?
Yes, I'm coining this term. This is called a false Disney trifecta because the third thing he has, or the thing that is his, that would have completed his Disney trifecta, is not the correct. It's just titled the same as something that exists in one of the three categories.
Okay.
So it has no relation to any of the three big things. It's not Star Wars, it's not Marvel, it's not Disney. So he does
have... The guy's
have...
name, by the way, is Ron Cook.
Ron
Cook is the gentleman. He has 102 acting credits. He is that guy.
That guy, right. Most notably, I wrote down he was in the Hot Fuzz movie with Simon Pegg. That's our Star Wars kind of connection there, because Simon Pegg is kind of the new kind of hidden Star Wars guy. So Ron Cook was in a Disney movie called 102 Dalmatians. One of my favorite movies as a kid. Don't ask me why the dumb sequel was my favorite. I just like that the dog didn't have any
you're
spots.
An idiot with no
great.
Taste.
Right. So his false Disney trifecta thing that he was in 1995. He was in the Hawkeye show.
Oh.
So hilarious. It's just a random series called Hawkeye that he was in. No relation to Marvel whatsoever. So there you go. That's his false Disney trifecta that he's in. It's a fake Marvel thing. He's not really into Marvel. But if he ever does do a Marvel thing for real, he would get one.
We will credit him correctly.
That's right.
If he does a Marvel thing for real.
Mm-hmm.
But presently, he does not appear to have been in one. Did you notice, Bradley, our little alien Easter egg in the back?
No, I didn't actually.
So the two creatures that are sitting in the back of the transport, those are Aki-Aki. They are the natives of Pisana from The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, nice.
So mostly aliens we've not seen before showing up in this, but we have seen the Aki-Aki before, and there's just a couple of them in the background of this ship.
Nice. I like that.
I just need to note that I feel very strongly being stuck on a plane that is circling the airport.
Okay.
I do relate to this feeling very heavily.
Got it.
I also want to shout out the music again, because the music in this final scene is so fucking good. And Bradley, we didn't talk about this last time. We need to talk about not one, not two, but three prominent crew members behind the scenes of this show.
Okay.
So the show is being written by, executive produced by, created by Tony Gilroy.
Okay.
Tony Gilroy has had a very interesting career. He is the writer of the Bourne Identity, Bourne Supremacy, Bourne Ultimatum, and Bourne Legacy movies.
Gotcha. Which we did bring up in our episode 0.
Which we did bring up. Yep. He is the one. He wrote The Devil's Advocate. He adapted Armageddon. He has done a couple of different things. He was the director of the Bourne Legacy. He has produced 26 episodes of House of Cards.
Nice.
So he produced a lot of the back episodes of House of Cards, it looks like. 27 through 52 were the chapters that he produced. He also served as one of the writers for a little film you might have heard called Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Tony Gilroy is responsible for vastly rewriting the third act of the film, aka the really good one.
The part that you like.
Well, I've come around on the whole movie, whatever. We won't get there. But that is who Tony Gilroy is. He wrote all the episodes of this show that we can tell.
Gotcha.
If that changes, I will, of course, shout out anybody who wrote it. But it looks like Tony Gilroy wrote the entire show, which is fucking insane. Which is absolutely fucking insane for a 12-episode show to have one guy write all 12 episodes. That is extremely bizarre. Speaking of people who are doing everything, because this is an insane production. Now, Wikipedia lists this IMDb lists something different. We're going to go with Wikipedia for now. Right now, Wikipedia and the end credits of Andor lists only one director. It is Toby Haynes is the director.
Nice.
Other than directing this, he has directed quite a few British shows. He directed an episode of Black Mirror. He directed 5 episodes of Doctor Who, some of the really good ones from the Moffat years. He has directed, it's just a lot of British shows. For my 2012 through 2015 Tumblr people, this is the guy who directed the Reichenbach Fall episode of season 2 of Sherlock. So this is that guy. He is the director of the entire Andor show. And there is one person, Bradley, that I want to spring on you, because I want to talk about the casting director.
Oh, I thought you were going to say like Kathleen Kennedy.
No, Kathleen Kennedy produced the entire show.
I know. I'm just kidding.
I want to talk about the casting director because this is my favorite casting director.
Oh, okay.
The casting director for Andor is a woman by the name of Nina Gold. Nina Gold is a goddamn casting director legend. She has 207 casting director credits, and she's been in the business for 30 years.
Love that.
Everything she has ever casted, 100% nailed every time. She is the casting director of Indiana Jones 5. She is the casting director behind, I'm just going to look at some of these that I noticed. She is the casting director behind The Crown, behind Rise of Skywalker, behind Chernobyl. She is the casting director for the entirety, start to finish, of Game of Thrones. She's casted it looks like all of the Star Wars that I can, not Rogue One. She wasn't the casting director for Rogue One.
Well, then who is she? She's a nobody if she didn't do that.
But she's done every other Disney era one. Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, and Solo.
Good for her.
This woman is a goddamn casting legend. She's incredible. So if you're looking at the casting of everything, you're going, oh my God, this is so good. Everybody's perfect. Nina Gold. Nina Gold is the reason why every person cast in this is so fucking good.
She's golden.
She is golden. She truly is golden. All right, Bradley. Now we can do final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Okay. Well, I'll let you start. What are your final thoughts? Because I don't have very many.
My final thoughts are, it took longer to cover this episode than I thought it was going to.
This episode is longer than the actual episode.
This episode is
almost 3 times as long.
It's almost 3 times as long as raw recording, almost 3 times as long as the actual episode itself. So brace yourself, folks. This is the kind of Andor coverage we're in for.
Right.
I mean, it's good. It's very much a middle chapter. Good. I really don't have anything else to say about it that I haven't already said. Bradley, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts are, I mean, there was interesting people in this one. At least the new people that weren't introduced in the first episode were like at least substantial enough for us to care. We got the new character of Mosk. We got the new character. Actually, he was the only one. It was just that I can think of. Marva. I'm sorry. Him and Marva. Marva, and Luthen are like the main.
Those are the main ones that are.
So those are the main ones that we needed to get, and we got them in the second one, and they had their moments. So I think that was good. And that's all I can say until episode 3.
Alrighty. Well, we will be back in 1 to 2 business days with episode 3. Bradley, you're waiting for me to say run the socials. I forget I have this power where I can hold the episode hostage, and Bradley's just gonna...
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gays. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gays. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gays. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gays, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gays.